get Tom is right on the money. We're live streaming. Whoa, Dr. Tachi John in the house. What do we got going on today? Me and Tom were already having a heated discussion about proper pricing and knowing your worth and how do you make sure that you're pricing right, not undervaluing yourself, still have enough work. I mean, we may do a whole show on it. So we really want you guys input on this. So let's just start, Tom. I'm skipping right over you. I'm going right to Dr. Tachi.
Well, I want to give one proviso real fast. We were having a heated discussion, as in we are both passionate about this subject, not as in we were arguing. We definitely see eye to eye on this. We're both passionate about this and making sure that people, advocate for themselves, right? And set high standards for what they're worth and actually charge what they're worth and don't get sort of talked out of that by other people. So anyway, I just wanted to clarify that we are both passionate about this. We both agree that it's a subject that needs to be talked about more openly too. I think people are afraid to talk about pricing and they're afraid to talk about how much they charge. But I think transparency is always a good thing, right? Especially when it comes to pricing and costs. And it's something I talk about a lot with my clients. I had a conversation with a client about this yesterday, where I was just being very frank and open and honest about costs and why things would cost what they cost. And everybody walked away from the conversation happy. So I think it's something definitely worth talking about. And I would love to hear what Dr. Tachi has to say on the subject. I'm sure she's got an opinion.
Absolutely, Dr. Tachi, bring it on. I will say, before I got to interrupt, I just hit my elbow right on my desk, and damn, that hurt. So, okay, Dr. Tachi, go on.
Oh, I know the feeling. So sorry. Can you? My volume was down, so I missed like the first part of what you said. Can you give me a little recap, please? Or not?
Yeah, no, I got you. So we were just talking, Dom and I were talking right before we started the live. We were talking about pricing and how you price your services, how you price yourself for clients, what you charge for your work, right? And how do you make sure that you're charging enough to survive, right? To be profitable as a business, and not pricing yourself out of the market. So there is a little bit of a line there to walk. How do you make sure you're walking that line where everybody can come away from it happy, both yourself and your clients, and nobody feels like they're getting taken advantage of, right? So that's basically what we were kind of talking about, was just how do you price yourself? How do you price your services? Was the sort of broad question. So go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for the recap. That can be something difficult, especially when you're new in an industry and the overwhelming feeling is you want clients. So sometimes you're underpricing yourself, which is also undervaluing yourself so that you get the clients. But what you have to realize is that it is not just about you in your field. If you don't price yourself properly, it affects everyone. And I know some people may not look at it holistically or as a collective, but it is. Especially, Tom, I'm sure you can attest to the fact with video and filmmaking, etc. When you have clients, there are those people that, and it's funny, there was somebody that I know that was young and a little newer to the industry, and his thing was like, well, we're just really, trying to get a whole bunch of clients and corner the market. So they were only charging like $200 for like drone work and a whole lot of stuff. And I looked at him and I was quiet for a long time. And I had to say,
right when she was about to drop some knowledge, she cut out. Dr. Tachi, if you're still there, you said right when we were about to say, and then you cut out. All right, we'll come back to that. Tom, I bet it was going to be good.
Yeah. Oh, there we are. We lost you there for a second, Dr. Tachi. What were you said? Yeah. Right when you said I was about to say, and then it went blank.
Oh, I don't know what I was about to say, but there's a fair amount of, I hope you heard the other part, but there was a fair amount of research that is involved in pricing yourself right. So research and see what is the kind of quote standard for the industry in terms of what people are paying. You'll probably be able to Google, look on sites to kind of find out what the going price is, and you can talk to people. Some people may be willing to kind of mentor and help you with, okay, this is generally around what the price is. For example, like with video, per video, that's around what the price is. But then you also have to look at your expenses and the things that you're putting into it. Is there training that you come to the table with that other people don't? So even though the standard price may be this, if you're also coming with more training and more background experience and education, then you can go a little bit higher because you've got a justification. So those are my basic thoughts of it. To consider your experience, consider your training, do some research, and remember, it's not just about you, because when you underprice yourself, you affect everyone. When you are exorbitant, it affects everyone too.
When you said that, Dr. Tachi, immediately this story sprung to mind. So years ago, everybody in here probably has been here enough to know that my background is that I came up through the television industry. And years ago, when I was still working in television, I got a call for a job, and I gave them my rate. This is the kind of the standard thing in television. It's all an independent contractor industry. Everybody kind of basically you have to negotiate your rate for essentially every job that you do. So I'm very used to negotiating for myself and advocating for myself because of this background and this history, right? And so I gave them my rate, and they said, oh, we were paying the last guy X. And I said, well, that's great, but this is what I cost. And I happen to have worked for this company before. And I said, go talk to the executive, the EIC, the executive in charge of production. This is the rate that this company paid me the last time I worked for you guys, and I'm not going to work for anything less than that. Go check with her, see if it's okay, and then come back to me. They went and checked with her. She said, yeah, that's his rate, pay him. And so I started doing the job. Well, I came to find out after I started the job that the last guy that they paid this garbage rate to was a friend of mine. And I called him up and I yelled at him. Like we have that kind of relationship, right? He was also somebody who was at my wedding, right? He's a good friend of mine. I called him up and I yelled at him, and I was like, hey man, you can't do that. And he was like, well, I needed the job. And I was like, you didn't need the job that bad. You didn't advocate for yourself. You didn't negotiate. They would have paid you more. Guess what they're paying me? And he was like, what? And I gave him my rate. He was like, holy crap. And I was like, yeah, exactly. You know why? Because I stood my ground and I said, I'm not going to work for any less, right? You got bowled over. You didn't do well negotiating for yourself and advocating for yourself. And now they tried to screw me because you let them screw you. You can't do that. Right. And, look, this was a conversation between friends. I wouldn't recommend calling up somebody out of the blue and having this kind of frank conversation with them. But he understood where I was coming from. I was genuinely upset with him. And I was upset with him for two reasons. One, because of the impact he was having on the rest of the industry. But two, because he was a friend of mine and he got screwed and he let himself get screwed. And I think like anytime we've had a friend, in a situation like that where we've seen them let themselves get taken advantage of, sometimes you get frustrated kind of on their behalf, right? And for them. And that's what I was feeling. And that's why I kind of approached him that aggressively. But it made an impact, right? And he told me after the fact that he sort of never took the first offer again after that conversation. He doesn't work in that industry anymore, just like I don't. But yeah, he never took the first offer again after that conversation. So just remember, like Dr. Tachi, I think she brought up a great point. You're not just impacting yourself, you're impacting the other people in your field. So when you take a garbage rate, when you let somebody take advantage of you, you're making it harder for the next person to get their rate as well. So just remember that it doesn't just affect you. But I just wanted to highlight that and share that story because it was definitely something that was poignant for me. So thanks for sharing that, Dr. Tachi. Dom, what do you think?
I'm loving the conversation. This is not the smartest guys in the room. I'm wondering if people ever look at other people's contracts as well, like other people in the industry. Sometimes, like I might have a a client that sends me another proposal. I say, hey, please let me look. I'll look at the proposal. I'll tell you exactly what it says here. And then I look at the proposal too, and I'm thinking, this guy's charging for this. This guy's hiding this. This guy's, they committed to 2 years at X amount per month with this company. They don't even know. Yeah. So I wonder if people are looking at the other contracts as well and seeing what those other people are charging. Oh, they're charging this and I'm charging this. Okay. Not the smartest guys in the room. Somebody that's always one of the smartest guys in any room he walks in. That's our friend John. John, how do you know that when you're syndicating and stuff like that, that you're getting the right rate? How do you know that when you're helping people that you are charging the right amount or enough to feed your family? What do you got, my friend?
A lot of it is determining what the market will bear. But Tom made a great point. You have to have an idea ahead of time. So you have to do the homework of what your value is. So, for example, with my consulting services for podcasts, and that can include a lot of things, which I delineate to people, the value, I charge $500 a month. And that's inflexible. When it comes to advertising and sponsorship, it is a little more flexible, but a little trick is I know what the spot rate the station I work for charges. So I figure out the total cumulative reach they have, and on radio, then podcasts and social media, and they're getting a bargain at 10 grand a month. But what I do is I add in more so that I have room to negotiate, because people want to negotiate. And that's the same with corporations and everybody else. If they take your first price, and I've had people do this, usually it's because you underbid your services, and they see the value in it. So the main thing I'm going to tell people is do your homework first. Let people know. You don't have to be nasty about it, but just let them know this is what my cost is for my services. So let's say you're consulting. That's $50 an hour for up to 10 hours a month. Includes 1, 2, sometimes 3 phone calls, sometimes 4 phone calls. We can work on metadata tags. We can work on titles. We can work on a lot of things depending on what your needs are. Not everybody's needs are the same. We can do a deep dive on your content and your format and all that stuff. So those who don't want to take that service, that's fine. If they can find something to do for cheaper, that's fine. I remember, and I tell people this, I've been doing this for almost 20 years. So you're not just getting the service today, you're getting all the experience and all the education from everybody that taught me. So you have to kind of really know your value, but you have to sell. When I say sell, you have to inform the potential customer of what the value is they will get for their price. If it's just about price, more than likely you're going to lose that deal every time. Thank you.
Right on, man. There's always somebody that can do it for less, that can do it cheaper. And what the hell does that mean? Like of course you could give shit work and shit product and it'll be cheap as can be. All right. Julie, how are you pricing? How do you know what to price? How do you know when somebody comes back to you and they say, I want you to do it for half? You're like, what? What do you do? Do you have tips for other people that are, when you're helping people share their stories? Julie, what answers do you have on pricing for us? She's there. I see her picture. She changes her picture.
Going once.
Yeah. You got a nice echo today, Tom. Just right there. It sounds good.
Going twice. I just kind of held on to that. Am I echoing on your side?
No, it just sounds good.
I'm using a different mic today. The mic I've traditionally used. I'm using a different mic. I bought a different mic to use for interior dialogue recording for interviews and things like that. So a different boom mic, and so I'm using that as opposed to my standard sort of large diaphragm condenser microphone. So it's for all the audio nerds. It's a hypercardioid microphone instead of a large diaphragm condenser microphone. So I saw Dr. Tachi threw a heart up, so she knows what I'm talking about.
There you go, mic nerds in the house. Hey, I want a mic that I can sit here and talk when I'm on, either when I'm Zooming with somebody, but I want it to be able to plug into my phone as well, because like when we do Clubhouse like this, I don't use Club Deck. I plug right into my phone. So I use these goofy mics. I want a mic that does both. That some days I can plug into my phone. I'm cheap. I want one that I can plug into my phone some days and then plug into a USB port another day. Send me a link. Come on, somebody help a brother out. All right. What do you got, Dr. Tachi? You have an answer for me?
Yeah, I do. And I'm sure that John probably has another answer, and Tom as well. But there is a device. You can actually use any mic with your phone as long as you have an adapter. There's something called an iRig preamp, and it's from iRig is the brand, not the brand, but the model of it or whatever. So it's a preamp, and it basically turns the signal from any mic into something that your phone can use. Well, are you iPhone or are you Android?
I am iPhone.
Okay, there is an adapter for the iPhone that it will work with. So if you want to use the mic that you're already using and it's a USB mic, there is an adapter for that, for USB and also for XLR, the 3 prongs that you turn in. So all you really need is an adapter, and you can use it with use your phone with almost any mic.
Okay, and I know Tom will get mad at me about the tech stuff. I need to figure this out. I need to do some research. Damn sure I'd like somebody to tell me what adapter to buy, and I'll just push it on Amazon today.
I was gonna say, why on earth do you not just send me an email, man? Like, I'm here, I can help. There's no doubt I can help you find the right microphone that'll solve that problem.
Okay, Tom is getting an email today. I wanted to point out something that, one, me and Tom someday are going to meet in person. We're working on that, but we don't really fight. And I fight with people, argue with people, and there's never been like where I'm like, that mother, I'm quitting, I'm done. No, we don't have that. We're pretty, yin and yang is peace. Yin and yang is not necessarily opposite. Yin and yang is peace. So we're just.
And it's mutual respect, I think. I genuinely think it's mutual respect is like the sort of key to not getting into those sort of like those debates or those arguments where you do really get mad. Because, I respect you, you respect me, you and I both know, even when we disagree on things, we're both coming from a good place. We both, we know we're good people. We see each other as good people. And so I think it's that mutual respect that we have for each other that's why we get along. I think that's why this works, right? Is because we respect each other. So that's my thought.
Hey, I'll take that, and I will send you an email. Okay, pricing. So what did we talk? We're talking about pricing. We're talking about mics, and something that I had here was book writing tips. But pricing yourself, Joyce, when you're out there with clients, with all the work you do, Canamom, how do you know you're pricing yourself right or not underpricing, or is it a problem?
Hello, good morning. Sorry I missed last week. I was at a Cana Law conference. I don't price myself right. This is a whole nother issue. But I will say I was working with a new social media manager this week. And I don't have a lot of money. I was looking for somebody. She said she would do it for the price that I offered, but I think she didn't understand what I was asking. So we did have a little bit of we had a couple of meetings this week to discuss what was expected and what she could actually offer. And then she actually brought her supervisor into the conversation. And I was a little frustrated because I had asked specifically, I'm a lawyer, like I used to bill every 6 minutes. I understand the value of time and money. And she wasn't honest with me upfront about how much she could do with the money I was giving her, because I didn't know it was low. So that was a little frustrating. If you're going to actually take something for a low price and understand it, be very specific about what you can actually offer. So I think that's my little tip. But for my own personal, I'm not priced. I know. I actually wanted to talk, maybe it can be another topic, another day, about persistence and perseverance, which is really something I am good at, but sometimes you need to stop.
Bring it on.
When do you know?
Okay. So right behind me, there's a book called The 5 L's. The 5 L's, The Gift of a Balanced Life. And these authors, they believe the 5 L's are love, labor, laughter, Leave. And one, I'm going to look it up right now, and they're probably all going to fall down. Love, labor, laughter, leave. Love, laughter, labor, leisure, leave. They believe if you have all these 5 things, you have a balanced life. And so, Joyce, to your point, one of them is leave. And sometimes you got to walk away. You got to know what's harming you. I'm reading Ed Millett, one of Ed Millett's books right now, and he talks about your inner circle and it being like a bullseye. And sometimes there's people that are on this target that are hurting you, and you got to walk away from them. So how do you know when to walk away, when they don't serve you, when they're harming you, when they're bringing you down, when your body gets all flustered with when you talk to them and you tingle on your whole body? Does that ever happen to you? You see that email from somebody, or you see your phone rings and it's that person, and you're like, that mother, that might happen at times. Go on, Tom.
I was just going to say the thing that I get sometimes, like, and it's much less often. It used to happen a lot more when I was sort of younger, earlier in my career. I would, whenever there was something that you were, concerned about, a point of tension, right? You would see that phone ring, like that phone would ring, or you'd see that name pop up in your email inbox or something like that. I would get this flush of where you kind of feel hot, right? And everything just kind of tightens up, and you're just like, uh-oh. It's that uh-oh feeling of that hot flush, oh shit, I'm about to get, it's, you know what it is? It's the feeling when you're 6 years old and one of your parents catches you red-handed doing something you're not supposed to be doing, right? That you're not supposed to be doing, and you're in trouble for it. It's that same feeling. It's the adult version of that feeling of getting caught red-handed as a 6-year-old by one of your parents, right? Where you were doing something you weren't supposed to do, and they just walked in, and there's no talking your way out of it, right? There's no way to try to claim you were doing something else. It was clear that you were doing something you weren't supposed to be doing, like throwing a ball against the wall, or throwing a ball against the side of the house or something like that, right? Something I got caught doing that I was not supposed to be doing because it was damaging the siding on the house, and but I got caught doing it sometimes, often, multiple times. Anyway, that's not the point. But you know what I'm saying? I think it's the adult version of that feeling. That's that flush, that hot flush feeling. Yeah, I used to hate that. I don't get it so much anymore.
We need somebody to give us the health reason why that happens. What is that can make a whole body flush when you see something? John, Julie, Dr. Tachi, ever have a time when it's time to walk away? And yep, it's time. Sometimes I have these conversations sometimes, and this is it. This is the limit. You push too far. My employees don't get treated like that. My contractors don't get treated like that. I don't allow that, and sometimes I have an office in the basement of my house, and my wife's up a couple stories, whatever. And sometimes she'll be like, I could hear you. What was going on? And I'm sweet as can be. But I believe in not mistaking kindness for weakness. Don't think because I'm kind or that I'm just going to let people walk over those closest to me. So, John, Dr. Tachi, Julie, you have any advice for walking away? Go on, John. We'll go John and Dr. Tachi.
Dr. Tachi first, then me.
Okay, Dr. Tachi, drop it, and then we'll go to John, and then Leslie and Eric. What's up, Eric? How you been, man? This guy always looks good in this picture. Okay, Dr. Tachi, go on.
He does. Eric always has that look.
Yeah, he's a hunk, man. A hunk. Go on.
Absolutely. For me, when I start to get this feeling of dread, I know it's time to walk away. And it's where I don't feel like doing or being bothered, or my answers to things are not what they should be. That means I don't feel like being bothered with the situation or you. So that it's time for me to walk away. I think it's about, for me anyway, being in tune with what you accept and how that makes you feel. If it really bothers you, like it physically makes you annoyed and bothers you to be working in that situation because of how you're treated or with the pay or whatever the case may be, then you know it's time to walk away. I'll bring up a really quick example again of we were working with a client where it's a larger institution and their thing is net 30 in terms of getting paid, which if you ask me is ridiculous, but I digress. So if you have the money for something, damn it, pay for it. You don't have to wait 30 days, but that's just me. So fine, it's net 30, but because of the dishevelment there, it ends up being net 60, net 90, that type of thing. And so the last time that happened, where we were then calling accounts payable and finding out what was happening, both of us just said, you know what, that's it, we're done. We're willing to walk away from the relationship with this, even though they call us regularly for things, it's not worth it. So when it becomes not worth it for your peace to continue, that's when it's time to walk away. And sometimes it's hard because you're like, okay, there's money involved there, but you have to ask yourself, is the wahala and the money worth it? Is there enough money that they could pay you to deal with the wahala or the mess, right? Or is it, are you okay with that? So you have to decide for yourself how much is too much and if the money and the annoyance is worth it.
Can I actually clarify? I mean, I know how to walk away from people. I'm an old woman. I've done a lot of this, but I'm more talking about projects. Like you are investing. I'm talking about specifically the podcast I'm doing. I've been doing this for almost 5 years. I don't know if I'm done with it or not. I keep thinking I am. People tell me I'm not. How do you know? Like, and I will say my own personal experiences when I talk about not doing it, I am sad. But what I'm getting out of it and the cost of it at this point has been really complicated. And I'm trying to get more sales. That's the one thing. Obviously, I'm not pricing things right. I'm not doing something, but it's a passion project at this point. But when is it? I don't know. When is it time to move on? That's sort of what I've been struggling with. And where could I add value in a different way? I guess.
So really quickly, Joyce, is it to the point where you don't want to do it anymore, where you are dreading doing it, where it's like, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. If it's not the joy that it was and you don't see the immediate value anymore, then maybe it's time to either walk away or take a break and revisit it at another time.
No, there's still joy. And it's, you know, it's like anything. I've invested a lot of time, a lot of energy, my own money in this podcast, and I'm very proud of it. But could I be doing something with my limited time on this earth to add value in a different way to the industry? I guess that's where I am. So that's what I've been struggling with. And I am like ridiculously persistent. And in my professional life, I would do things that really weren't good for me until it turned into chaos and I would get fired or something crazy would happen. So I'm not good at figuring what the line is because I just feel like I've committed to something. I need to go just keep doing it. That's my own thing. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I hear you, Joyce. I feel that way sometimes. You said you get joy from it. Do you love it?
Oh yeah. I mean, my community, I've been spending a lot of my years trying to figure out how to monetize my time. And in this endeavor, I've actually found this very strong community and I enjoy having my voice in someone else's head listening to me. I find very empowering. And I do feel like I have something to add value and say, but maybe I could be doing it in a different way. I guess that's where I am.
Tom, you got any feedback on that?
I mean, I think to me, it feels like a cost benefit analysis kind of has to happen, right? Like as I was hearing Joyce talk about it, like, so what are the costs in terms of like, what are your investments in terms of time, actual, financial investments, et cetera, et cetera? Like, what are you putting into it? What are you getting out of it? Right. And like, at the end of the day, if it's something that brings you joy, I would push you towards finding a way to continue doing it, right? Don't underestimate the value of creating happiness for yourself and the impact that has on other parts of your life and other parts of your work life. If you can find joy in part of the things you do, it makes it easier to do the parts of your job that you don't really love, right? Because there's parts of our jobs for all of us that we don't really love, right? That we do because we have to. to get to do the other parts that we really do love and we really do derive joy from. So I think, like, for me, I would do a cost benefit analysis, right? Like, for example, let's talk about this, right? So, I don't make any money when I'm here on Wednesday mornings with Dom, right? Like, we don't make any money doing this. We don't get paid for this. Nobody pays to come into this space with us. I don't develop client relationships out of this. Haven't yet, right? Been doing it for over a year. Why? Because I love doing it, right? So to me, the investment of time, the money that I pay out of pocket for the streaming service that we use to be able to do this. To me, it's worth it, right? Because I enjoy this that much, right? So I keep doing it, and I'll keep doing it, right? And I'm looking for other ways to sort of make more out of this and potentially maybe monetize it, at least to make it self-sustaining, so it doesn't cost anything, right, to do. But yeah, I do it because I love it, and that's enough for me in this instance. It's not always enough, but in this instance, it's enough. So I guess that's what the question you have to ask, Joyce, is if you love doing it, if it brings you joy, does it bring you enough joy? Do you love it enough to make it worth doing for free, or to continue doing the way it is? Or does it mean you do it a little bit differently, right? So I don't know. That's the way I would look at it. That's kind of my way of thinking when it comes to things like this. What do you think, Dom?
Yeah, I mean,
What do you think, Joyce?
But it's good to hear from others again. So I'm kind of, you're kind of in a bubble when you do a podcast. I have a community, but it's not a real, I don't know. It's been an interesting journey to get here. So I actually have to go. My daughter's graduating from the University of Arizona. I'm leaving from Boston in a few minutes, but I just wanted to check in with you because I think this room feeds my souls on Tuesday or Wednesday. I feel like last week I missed something, but I just appreciate your advice and hearing from you, and that you acknowledge that I exist, which is awesome. So thank you so much. And I'm actually going to miss a couple of weeks, but I'll be back. I do love the room. So thank you.
Joyce, we appreciate you. Tom, I'm looking at Tom, and he put his hand on his heart, and that does mean a lot to us that you say that. I mean, we come here every week, hopefully help you forget about whatever's going on for an hour and a half. And then also, if you are thinking about what's going on, maybe we can help you ease the burden or create a new path, find a new mic, think, hey, could you batch record? Could you record twice a month or whatever, just let's analyze it, look at it from a different point of view, and maybe we can smile along the way. So, hey, good luck down in Arizona. Send some pictures. We better see some Instagram pictures of you in Arizona.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great couple weeks, and I'll see you in a few weeks. Bye.
And big congrats to your daughter, Joyce.
She gives you a clap. Eric, man, what's going on, brother? We were talking about, and I'm sure you know a lot about this. How do you know how to price yourself accurately? So one of the subjects we really dug into at first was pricing yourself right. There's so many new business owners out there that just think, I'll do it for free. I'll do it cheap. I'll do it. I had somebody do some work on like pressure wash the other day. And I'm like, well, how about this? Will you climb up and do that while you're here? And he's like, yeah, I'll do it for this much money. That part of the thing, he never came back and did because he probably priced it too low that it wasn't even worth his time. Well, price it so it is worth your time. And I need you to fix this thing up there. How do you know that you're pricing right? What do you got for us, Eric?
Hey, thanks. Good morning, guys. So I wanted to jump back real quick with permission on the consistency and staying in it or getting out of it.
Please, man, you're up here. We need you, man. Do your thing.
So it was interesting because I could hear, like, Tom's like, well, I came in this because I enjoy this. Like, the energy that I came in was not to create a business, grow my listeners, monetize. I came in because this is something I wanted to be a part of. And I think sometimes as business owners, entrepreneurs, we come in like, okay, I'm going to create a podcast because it will generate clients, grow my influence. And then when that's not working out, we get stuck like, okay, is this a bad business plan? But I'm enjoying it. And so for me, I used to do a live show every day, Monday through Friday, 8:30 for 3.5 years, never missed a day, even if it was Christmas morning. I was like, wait a minute, Eric, you came in this with the intention that it was going to produce these results. It's not. So therefore, end it. Now, if you want to shift it into your personal time, your fun time, your hobby time, then you got to create a time block in that group of your life to make room for it. And so if it's a business and it's not producing, dump it and move on. If you had an objective and you've given it all it can, shift it or move on, people. And I think it was Joyce said she invested so much time and energy into it, she wasn't sure if it was time to let go. And I thought, that's it. If you let go, then you feel like you wasted time and energy. So you're going to hang on so that you don't have to confront that question of like, was it a waste of my time and energy, versus just saying, you know what, I give it a shot, didn't work out, moving on to the next thing, time to pivot. So if you're afraid of wasting time and energy, or you think people are going to judge you like, yeah, you did that for 3 years and got nothing out of it, just tell them to go on, find their own problems. You've got enough of your own. So, I mean, on that, like I said, I'm not really good at giving up on people, but I'm really good at saying it's over, it's done, let's moving on when it comes to a business plan.
Eric, that was some real mic drop stuff, man. Always appreciate you when you drop by. I have a dream. I used to have a restaurant I think I closed in 2005 and had it for 3 years, lost $500,000. And I still have dreams some nights that I'm still open and I forgot to put in the produce order, or like forgot to put the bread order in and something like that. And I really think, like Eric's, I think I could have stayed open forever, robbed Peter to pay Paul, and just hung on. But you reevaluate, like just like Eric said, what happened 3 years later, I wasn't franchising. I was $500,000 in debt. The business plan wasn't working. The way I set it up wasn't working. It was time to move on, not just hang on out of desperation. So Eric, man, great thoughts on that, man. Appreciate you.
No worries. And what I do every day, creating books for people, it's like I love getting caught in creative space. So I can be the worst at like, oh, that's a brilliant idea, let's chase it. Thank God I have a team member that's like, yeah, it's brilliant because you said it. Now let's all listen to it for a minute. It's like, what do you mean by that? He's like, well, let's think about this. How brilliant is it now that it's out of your head? It was like, okay, thanks for helping me keep grounded. So keep your business grounded. Let your life be free and carefree, but keep your business grounded is what I try and do every day.
Man, good tips. Tom's shaking his head. I agree. My wife will same as you, man. I come up with I'm like, we should start this. We should do this. She's like, nope, that's terrible. But with my buddy Jim Ajay down there, he throws some ideas to me and we're like, this is brilliant. And then we're not drunk 2 days later and we realize that was the dumbest idea we ever had. So then we don't go down that path. So well said. Hey, man, this is not the smartest guys in our room. We got our buddy Vaughn in the house. Man, it's nice to see Vaughn. Vaughn has the voice of an angel, by the way. Helps people put together audiobooks, knows his stuff. So Vaughn, we were talking about walking away from something. Tom, I might need a reset before we go to Vaughn here on all the things we're talking about. Then we will fairly go to Vaughn. So Tom, would you reset us, please?
Sure. So we started talking about how do you price your services? How do you make sure that you're pricing yourself not only fairly, right, for the client, but to yourself, right, and that you're not pricing yourself out of the market, making sure that your pricing is market appropriate, right? And then we ended up moving into talking about things you do with your time around your work, right? And how do you know when it's time to stick with something or let it go or change it up, right? Whether that's for financial reasons or time commitment reasons, whatever the case may be. And that's what we were just talking about with Joyce before she left, and Eric was chiming in on that as well. And that's a majority of it. We also briefly touched on Dom wanting a microphone that he could use both with his computer and with his phone. which came out of nowhere because he hasn't bothered to email me yet about that or ask me about that, even though he could reach out to me anytime and he knows that. So I don't know. I don't know why Dom was being a knucklehead about that and sitting on that question, because he could have asked that anytime, any day, and knows I would have helped. But anyway, that's pretty much what we talked about so far, I think. Am I right? Did I miss anything?
That's pretty good. So Vaughn, you have all those topics. Go for it, my friend.
Wow. Well, this is a good time to talk about this and jump back on with you all. It's good to see all my friends here. About like letting go, I can really just speak on this. I just had Friday was my memorial services for my mom. She went on home and ended that assignment. And at the same time, my brother was going through cranial surgery at UCLA. And at the same time, I was reducing my studio and office from a 1,500 square foot suite to about maybe in a 200 square foot spot in the same building. But all of that move and everything was happening at the same time. And when you guys were talking about like what to let go, and it goes along with pricing. One of the things I found in this last couple of weeks is like eliminating. There's a quote that says, elimination is the beginning of concentration. And so when I begin eliminating like expenses, eliminating things that, I love, Dom, you were talking about continuing your, a business that you could have kept, getting loans or kept going under. And my space that I had, my 1,500 square foot space, was nice. I had my jazz concerts there. There's a lot of potential to have other outside people rent out the space. It was so big. But I didn't really necessarily need the space. And it was moving into the smaller space is saving like almost $1,500 a month, which is a lot, almost 20 grand a year just in space. I moved my office room into where my mom's room was at the house, and saving like overhead or expenses cost and letting go. And that is gain. And with pricing, my pricing is fair, definitely fair with my clientele. However, as a business, I think what did they say? A penny saved is a penny, or a dollar saved is a dollar earned. So in business, saving expenses actually increases your profit as well. And the last thing I'll say with all of that is a thought came yesterday morning. My focus has always been how can I help others, get their voice out, and how can I? That's my purpose, is helping others to get their voice out. And the insight came to focus on, instead of income, focus on outcome. If I focus on the outcome of the transformation I provide and the service I provide, and also focus on the impact of what it is when I help others get their voice out, the income is going to come along with it. I wasn't necessarily always all total income based, but that paradigm, instead of looking for the income of what I'll get out of service, look for what's going to be the outcome for the client. What's going to be the outcome? And my pricing is priced on the value of my client, of what their outcome is going to be once they, once I provide them their service. And so that's been my insights and transformation, and going along with eliminating different things so that I can concentrate and focus on like the one thing that I do really well. I could do a lot of things well, but what's the one thing that's in alignment, congruent, on purpose, and in the direction on what I'm doing? And this last month or so has really helped me to focus and eliminate everything else that isn't serving for that purpose and the outcome of my clients. So with that, I'll yield back the mic. Thanks for having me.
Vaughn, man, we appreciate you, and we're sorry about your loss. You were a heck of a son to your mother, and she will continue to be proud of you. But you were there for her. She moved in with you, right?
I actually moved my family in with her at her house so she could be
Yeah.
home. Yep.
Yeah, that's a hell of a son, man. You can be proud of that. I had a friend, and I'm just going to sidebar a story. A friend of mine, a few years back, he had a government job, and his dad was real sick. And so he basically left work for a year and was side by side with his dad and lost his career, this government type career. And now it's been 20 years later, 25 years, and he has zero regrets about it. That time he spent with his dad, he couldn't be prouder of. So you did the right thing, brother. Hey, Dr. Tachi gave you a heart when you were talking. So Dr. Tachi, what was it that made you go heart when Vaughn was talking about sharing his story and I guess designing the business? Go on.
It resonated with me when you said it's not about the income. Sometimes it's about the outcome. I'm like, oh, that's a t-shirt right there. It absolutely is. And I think because obviously we live in a capitalist society, we live in a world that is dependent upon you making some sort of income, but sometimes that income supersedes the outcome. And that's where you end up disappointed and mad and not wanting to do things anymore. So when you focus sometimes, and obviously the income is important, but focusing on the outcome, I love that. I thought that was gold.
There you go. Go on, Eric. You flashed off. Continue, my friend.
Hey, so Vaughn, sorry about Mom. I know it's rough right now. Anyhow, we'll do that offline. So here's the question that I sort of have: this price yourself out of what market? And Tom and I have been talking on it because when I began, the price point that I was at, and my spouse comes in, nobody's going to pay you that. And then I'll come out of the office and I'm like, yeah, I just signed this contract now. I'll tell them, no way. Who would pay that kind of money? I'm like, I don't know, but apparently that person will. And then every time that I thought I had reached the cap, there would be one person that would show up that would say, oh yeah, that's cool. That's my floor. That may have been your ceiling yesterday, but that's my floor. So I can do that. So I wonder how much of our fear of imposter syndrome plays into our pricing. And then I was recently in Bogota at a book fair, and I saw people spending crazy money for an experience. So we do a book for it, Bogota. Bogota is the largest Latin American book fair, like 600,000 people. And some of our authors come in to launch their book live during the event. And we're filming, and I put the word air quote filming, with iPhones and a camera guy streaming out to Instagram and whatever. And some of the women are in the adjacent hotel getting hair and makeup. And by hair, I mean like extensions and makeup, like makeup artists. I'm like, do they not know it's just on Instagram? It was the experience around it that we were able to craft, that they were willing to invest hair and makeup money in special dresses for. And so that price point, it's like, we've all overspent for a romantic evening because we wanted that experience. So can we really price ourselves out of the market? Because somebody will pay Dom $1 million to ghostwrite their book, because to them, that's its value. So I'll close out there.
I mean, so I hear what you're saying, Eric, and I agree with you mostly. I think when we're talking about pricing out of the market, I think what we're talking about is like just being completely out of the ballpark, right? Like I think of pricing as like you have to be in sort of the neighborhood of what the market will bear, of what people will spend for your particular service, right? Like no restaurant that charges $100,000 for dinner is going to open up and find, success if they have to turn over, 200 tables a night or something like that, right? Like there's such a thing as pricing yourself out of the market in that in that way, right? Are there restaurants that charge $1,000 for dinner and are very successful? Absolutely. But 100 times that for the same experience, people just aren't going to pay it. Right. So I think that's what we're kind of thinking about when we talk about like pricing out of the market. Like you have to be in the neighborhood, in the ballpark, and you have to be, I think you do have to be sort of appropriate for your experience level in the industry. Right. I mean, like somebody, for example, working with my company, the sort of starting point is about a $5,000 investment to work with us, right? That's kind of the starting point, and then things go up from there, right? But if somebody who had 2 years of experience, 3 years of experience, right, in production, tried to price their services the same way, I think they would price themselves out of the market, right? I don't think the market would bear that because they don't have the experience to be able to turn around and say, yeah, it's $5,000 just to get started, but you're also working with a company run by somebody who has 22 years of experience in the industry and has twice been nominated for an Emmy Award, right? That carries with it a higher pricing structure because I have those credentials and I have that experience, right? So I think that's what we were talking about really, was just sort of being in the ballpark. Always, I think, push your pricing probably a little bit higher than you are comfortable with. If you're comfortable with your pricing, you're probably not charging enough. So I 100% agree with you there. And I've done that. I've told people what my pricing is and had them turn around and say, well, that needs to be higher, right? You can charge more for that. So I've 100% been guilty of underpricing myself, but yeah, I think that's kind of what we mean when we talk about pricing out of the market, right? Is just being completely unreasonable for the work that you're doing. So yeah. And I think that goes both ways, both over and under. You can also be unreasonably underpriced as well. So that's kind of what we were talking about, just being in the right neighborhood. And I think what your experience says is you've been in the right neighborhood the whole time, right? You're in the nice you're in the nice end of the neighborhood, right? Where the bigger houses are, which is great. I mean, that's good for you, right? But you're pricing yourself appropriately because people are willing to pay it. If you weren't pricing appropriately, people would just look at what you're offering and say, nope, no way, not a chance. Too much, right? So that's kind of where we were coming from with that, I think, if that makes sense.
So it does. And what I think is interesting is because you're a voice, you got like smooth. You know that where you place the emphasis is where the listener hears or what they hear. And so I like the idea that, are you overpricing yourself for the market? It's almost like we're letting the market dictate our value versus, wait a minute, is your value appropriate for the price you're charging? Because if you're charging $1 million to ghostwrite a book, but you've never finished an ebook on how to turn on a dishwasher, then your skill set to value ratio is off. Because in the market, there's somebody that'll pay $1 million to have a ghost written book. I mean, I just was reading the article on the guy that ghost wrote. See, that's why they don't pay me $1 million. Prince Harry's book, and what that experience was about. And everybody's like, wait a minute, he had a ghostwriter? Yes, of course. So I think for entrepreneurs, it's like, maybe you don't understand your value in the market. Maybe you need to realign your value and your skill set in order to achieve the market share that you're going after. Because that market share exists, you just haven't grown up to be a part of it. And so I'll agree with you on that. It's like $1 million burger on a highway overpass, not sure, but right part of town in New York. They're doing it all the time. I know there's at least once a month that gold leaf burger bun or whatever kind of Facebook post. So I'll agree with you, Tom.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, Eric, you couldn't pay me to eat one of those gold leaf burgers. Not a chance.
And I laugh when people say I spent $80,000 on a car. I'm like, it's a car. You obviously don't have kids that eat popcorn in the back seat on the way home from swim team, because there is no way I'm putting that much money in an ashtray, whatever kind of car.
Right, Eric. I hear that. The mud in the back. My wife's mother-in-law, my wife's mom just got in her car the other day, and it's like, didn't you need to vacuum this? No shit. My daughter was just going like this with her cleats in there the day before, like she leaves track, goes to lacrosse. It's muddy there. Why would we? I get it, man. Okay. Not the smartest guys in the room. We're going to my friend Jimmy. What do you got to say about sales? I know Jimmy's passionate about sales, and he's pretty successful too. So pricing yourself right, Jim, is that what you want to talk about? Go on, my friend.
Yeah, I think you guys have talked for a while, and I've listened on off and on here as I'm working. But Tom and I don't know if it was John or somebody else mentioned it. I think the key point here is, especially if you're selling a service, you're also selling yourself. So you need to talk about your experience. You need to talk about how you've helped others. You need to talk about successes that you've had, and do it in a way where you're not bragging, but you're letting them know how you've helped other people to show your value. The point that Eric just made about don't let the market dictate your price, that's a really tough one. Because, if they know you can buy something for $10,000 and you come in at $20,000, why are you twice as valuable as that person for 10? And sometimes the market will screw you in that regard. That happens with, I sell a tangible product. I don't sell services like you guys do. But if my product is priced higher than others, I better be able to explain why and give them more value for them to be able to buy my product. So, you're selling yourself, you're selling the experience. That was good when someone mentioned that. I think if you're too afraid to ask, then maybe you're not as confident in yourself as you think you are. That's something else. That's all I have.
Thanks, Jim, man. And you sound good today. Go on, Tom. What do you want to add to that?
Well, I wanted to ask a question, actually. So this is something that came up the other day, and I kind of said this out of hand, but I'm not a sales guy, and I don't really have any sort of real experience in sales. And I said this, and I kind of, after the fact, I was thinking, and I was like, you don't know that that's true, but you said it with crazy confidence, as if you know 100% that it's true. It's something I believe, but I want to see if there's some external validation for this, right? And so I wanted to ask Jim, as somebody who works in sales, who sells a physical product. I don't know if Jim has ever worked in a position where he's sold services as well, but it feels to me like it's harder to sell a service than it is to sell a physical product. Am I right, or am I crazy? Do I just feel that way because I have to sell my services to people?
No, you're 100%. No, Tom, you're 100% right. When I first started in sales, kind of like Dom, I did insurance. So you're selling the idea of how you're going to protect somebody, but you can't put your fingers on it. You can't touch it and feel it. And you have to be really good at sales to be able to do something like that, because it's a lot different. When you have a tangible product that people can see the value, they can see why it's better or different than what they might be using, it is a lot easier sale. Sales in general, I think the confidence aspect is a big part of it. If you're confident in yourself and your product or your services that you're offering, that comes through to the customer. And that's a huge thing, because, you're trying to build trust. You're trying to get them to like you. And if they like you, they're more likely to buy from you. But yeah, you're 100% right. Selling a service is much harder than selling a tangible product.
All right. I feel better about myself. Thanks, Jim. But and one of the things I do, I'll just share this. So one of the things I do is, I come from a background where I worked on very large like by comparison to the stuff that I do now in terms of scale and budget, I worked on much, much larger projects. I managed, I was a showrunner. I managed full episodic series of television productions, and, you know, dealt with multi-million-dollar budgeted shows. So to go from that to like a 5-figure budgeted project, you know, it's much less complicated. There are much fewer moving parts. There are much, you know, the staff is much smaller. The stakes are much smaller, right? Broadly speaking. And so that's something I actually will kind of lean on when it comes to putting a client at ease, or a potential client at ease, when they're talking about, to them, spending $50,000 on a project might be a lot of money to them. And so I'll talk about some of my past experiences, and I'll explain to them that I've dealt with much, much bigger productions, managing crews of 50 plus people, teams of 50 plus people on multi-million-dollar budgeted projects. And so I definitely can sort of easily handle their project, like by comparison. And I don't know, so far it's seemed to be beneficial. I try to, you know, you always have to couch it so you don't make their project feel small, but just in the context of like, hey, look, I've done much bigger, more complicated things before, so I can definitely handle this, is kind of how I contextualize that. And that seems to help. So just something I would share. I mean, I'm no sales expert by any stretch of the imagination. And I don't even really love sales. I'd rather come into it where like the sort of the person is like already 90% of the way there to making the decision, and then I get to come in and just sort of like finalize things and get the project moving forward. That's my goal, is to have somebody else, you know, have a sales team kind of doing the rest of the work of sales. I don't love that part. But yeah, so anyway, that's just something I wanted to share, like how I use some of my experiences to kind of help, you know, clients or potential clients make educated decisions about whether or not to work with me or to trust me with their budget. So yeah, so just thought I'd share that based on your thoughts, Jim.
Yeah, I had a quick question on that one, Tom, because what you just said, you know, you went from big budgets to much smaller budgets, and you know, what you consider a small budget, someone investing that type of money may think it's a lot of money. Have you ever found where you go through your whole spiel and you're talking and you're selling, and you know, you're talking to them for a good while, and then you mention cost, and then instantly they're scared away or they're run off? One thing I've learned over time is that when you're dealing with some bigger jobs, sometimes it is good to mention cost up front to see if you're in the ballpark, or you should even continue the conversation. I've gotten burned a couple times that way, and you know, I've changed the way I sell in certain instances based on that.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's actually like one of the first conversations I'll have, because there's a lot of misperception about kind of what professional production services cost, and why they cost what they cost. And I find that for a lot of businesses, they don't budget appropriately for professional level production. And that's for a whole variety of reasons. I could probably go down that rabbit hole and talk for hours just on why people do that. But it's very common that people budget inappropriately when it comes to production services. So early on in conversations with clients, I will ask them right away, like sometimes if people come to me already saying like as a referral or something, and they'll say, hey, I want to do this project. Like one of my first questions will be, great, what's your budget? Right? Because I want to know what they're thinking they have to spend or can spend or should spend. And then I want to talk to them about whether or not that's realistic, right? And then if it is realistic, then we can kind of keep going down the road. And if it's not realistic, then you know, I'll let them know that it's not going to work to work with somebody like me, but I can maybe recommend, you know, an alternative approach, or somebody who might be a little bit more in their budget, or help them scale down their idea so that it fits within that budget. But yeah, budget is typically very early on in the conversation. So by the time we get to the stage where I'm talking about like, managing a project of the size of their budget and kind of drawing that context comparison, saying, look, I've done much bigger, more complex things before. So like, you can feel confident that I can handle this project and your money is going to be well spent with me. Usually that conversation is long after we've had initial budget discussions. But I like to do ballpark budget very early on, because otherwise, I 100% agree. We can end up wasting a lot of each other's time. And that doesn't really help anybody. I don't want to waste their time and I don't want to waste my time. So I don't want to kind of go too far down the road before we have that initial discussion, and make sure at least we're like in the same state, right? When it comes to budget ideas and how much things are going to cost, right? I want to make sure we're geographically like kind of close before we go too far down the road. But yeah.
Hey, Tom, don't let anyone tell you you're not good at sales, because what you just mentioned is really what needs to be done. So kudos to you.
Thanks. It's not that I don't, I actually had somebody who was a regional sales manager for like the Northeast region for a very large company tell me that I could sell ice cream in Alaska. So it's not that I think I'm bad at sales. It's just that it's not what I love to do. And I want to do what I love to do. And I want to give that sales hat to somebody else who loves to do sales. So yeah, but I appreciate you saying that. It's just not my favorite. And so I don't put a lot of time and attention and effort into it because I just don't love doing it. Right. But I appreciate you saying that.
Hey, I got a great sales answer for that guy that said you could sell. Some people will say I could sell a ketchup lollipop to a woman in white gloves. I could sell ice cream in Alaska. Now, the contrary to this, just to be a jerk, is why would you want to? That might be bad business. So here's somebody saying, so that's my counter to that guy in sales. All right. Not the smartest guys in the room. It is that time of day. For anybody that watches the live stream, you ready for this? We got a special treat today. All right. Now, I sometimes tell you that my mom kept a lot of stuff, and could be as she has her dementia progressed, maybe she kept more stuff. Maybe she just loved us and wanted us to have things for the rest of her life. I found this little gem at her house one day. This is an ET wallet. And in my ET wallet, it had mom had me prepared. She had my phone number in there. Had anybody stolen my ET wallet? And then look how sweet this is. It's like a plastic. I mean, this thing I should put it on. And then now here's the secret that you guys don't know. I actually had foster brothers at one time. I miss them, love them. And they went back to live with their parents. And I have very few pictures of them. And in this perfect wallet, I found these gems in here. So ET wallet, it's gold. Mom saved it for me, and I'm glad she did. What do you think about ET wallet?
I got to say, Dom, I think that's my favorite one so far. That's my favorite one, not only because it is adorable, right? As a piece. Right. But the story behind it is amazing. And I love that. And I love learning, I didn't know that you had foster brothers growing up. So love learning things about people and things about people's lives and all of that. I mean, everybody knows I'm a sucker for a good story. Right. So love that. But yeah, that is my favorite thing so far that you've shown off. It's going to be tough to beat that one. In fact, I will reference it going forward. I'm sure as you bring out other things, I'd be like, yeah, it's kind of cool, but it's no ET wallet. It's no ET wallet.
That's fair. And you know what is wrong with the world today? I think the world is a good place, and I believe in the world, but not enough people love ET. I just asked somebody about ET the other day, and they said they thought ET was scary. ET is absolute the best. And somebody said they thought ET was scary. Come on. ET is the purest, most loving thing. Look, his heart glows. Nothing outside his body. You can see how happy ET is. I mean, he's the best thing ever. All right, so we're going to continue here. Not the smartest guys in the room. I'm glad Tom liked the wallet. I feel like that's a winner then. Okay, L, we have been talking about pricing, knowing your worth. We talked about microphones. Tom, what else did we talk about? Come on. I'm at my limit.
So we got into sales, right? We got into
Yeah.
a long discussion about sales. Definitely the pricing thing is, has been a common theme throughout. I think I want to get back to like, after we go to L, there's something I want to circle back to or kind of add into the mix about pricing. But but pricing has definitely been the common theme throughout the room today.
L, that leaves it up to you. Go on, my friend.
I love this part of it. So I love sales. I'm in a service industry, but I love the sales part of it. I can do the technical part of my job. I used to do it all myself. I was a one-woman show. And now I have a crew that works for me. So I am in charge of sales and keeping that pipeline flowing. I love it. It's like a competition with myself. I literally get a high from it. I do. And I heard you guys talking about pricing or about, when you're approaching a client, that first conversation has to be pre-qualifying, right? Because time is money. You're wasting time and valuable money if you are working with or trying to work with somebody who's clearly possibly not aware of what something you're offering costs, or maybe then you can, be of service because you still want to preserve that relationship. They might be a good referral, right? Help them figure out who they could work with, how they could get the job done. You aren't the one for them, right? You're not talking about apples to apples, you're apples and oranges. So I love that part of the job. And I also I'm in the trades. So I deal with a lot of women also in the trades. I belong to a couple professional networks, and we talk about this a lot. Women tend to not be as aggressive in pricing and not know their worth. Constantly be doing your market research, understand what it is you can charge and confidently charge that. Get what you're worth. Be about what you're worth. You're not second rate. You're not second tier. And that doesn't just go for women. That's everybody. But women in particular seem to struggle with this. So I love the conversation. I'm here for it.
I love that. I agree. I think a lot of it, 100% L, has to do with confidence, right? And Eric, I think, touched on this earlier. I think Vaughn might have touched on this as well, if I remember correctly. But a lot of your pricing, I think, has to do with confidence. One of the things, I actually said this yesterday. I did a presentation in a virtual meeting yesterday morning, and somebody was asking towards the end of that meeting, asked me a question, and about kind of this topic about pricing and how to determine pricing and being confident in your pricing and things like that. And it sort of instantly struck me as like imposter syndrome creeping in, right? Which we all kind of suffer from, especially as an entrepreneur, especially when you're out on your own, running your own business in the early days, for sure. You definitely get some imposter syndrome creeping in. And one of the things that I said was, do yourself a favor. This is something that helped me tremendously, and it's why I recommended it. But I said, do yourself a favor, do some back of the napkin math, right? Think about I forget which book it was, but one of Malcolm Gladwell's books where he talks about the sort of the 10,000 hour idea, this 10,000 hour rule, right? That in order to become really proficient at something, you have to spend about 10,000 hours practicing, right? And so what I suggested was do yourself a favor, do some back of the napkin math, and just a rough calculation. You can think of it as an average, like you put somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 hours per year in working, right? So if you've however many years in your profession times that 2,000 to 2,500 number, right, is sort of a rough estimate. Like I said, back of the napkin math, right? A rough estimate of how many hours you have in your profession, So just quick back of the napkin math, I've got close to 50,000 hours in production. 50,000 hours. I've been in production for 22 years this month, right? I've got close to 50,000 hours of work, of experience in production, right? So that, I believe, makes me an expert in what I do and makes me confident in pricing myself at a premium when I work with people, right? And I think if more people kind of did that calculus, right, it would kind of give you an idea. Eric was talking about that sort of like value to cost ratio. It's a great way to sort of just get yourself in the neighborhood, I think, on that value to cost ratio. Like, am I in the right neighborhood for the experience, the expertise that I bring to the table? And for myself, right, like almost 50,000 hours, or roughly 50,000 hours over the last 22 years of work in production, I think deserves a premium price tag, right? And I've been publicly recognized, with the Emmy nominations, like I mentioned earlier, for the work that I've done. So I'm confident in charging a premium for the work that I do. But not, other people, I think if you don't do that calculus, if you don't see it in black and white, if you don't kind of sit down and do the math, sometimes it's hard to really wrap your head around it. It's easy to let the voice in the back of your head talk you out of pricing yourself appropriately, I think. But that's a great way to kind of develop that confidence, to just make it, unequivocal in black and white. This is the experience that I bring to the table, right? And then have that in your mind whenever you go into a negotiation. Maybe for some people, it may be as simple as like writing out a bullet pointed list of their accomplishments, their certifications, their qualifications, their hours of work, hours of practice they've put into their industry, and just like post that up somewhere. Like read that before you go into a meeting on a note on your phone, or like put it on, on the side of your monitor on your computer, like on your desktop before you go into a Zoom meeting, and just look at that real quick. Just remind yourself that you have the expertise, the experience to stand on, to demand a good price, right? To demand adequate pricing for yourself. So maybe that's an idea for folks that struggle with that, is make that list, put it in a note on your phone, write it on a sticky note, stick it on the monitor, so that it's someplace where you see it before you go into those meetings, before you go into those conversations. You just remind yourself, like, this is what I'm standing on. This is the experience that I'm standing on. This is the expertise that I'm standing on. I do deserve a premium price. I do deserve to be in this meeting and have a seat at this table, so to speak. I don't know. As an idea, just kind of thought it up as I was talking, but seems like might be a good idea for some folks. What do you think, Dom?
I think it's good stuff. And as you are talking, in my head, I'm thinking about, like I say, I've been in sales 20 years. So there's certain sales, not just business that I'm in, but there's certain components of that where I'm like, I know this, that little logo of with the guy raising his hands like this, that's what's on the Motivation Champs book. Just to have that logo, to be associated with that, means that you're out with speakers that are speaking globally every day, that you're in a network with thousands of people that want inspirational content, motivational content. So just that alone is, get you to here. So I absolutely agree with Tom, where you have to know I'm worth this. Like Tom said before, to work with my company, floor is here. Elle said, like, when you're throwing out something early on, like when we sit down with somebody, I was with somebody the other day, we had a call, referred, this guy says, I said, oh, this. I'm just throwing out numbers, like, to do this, you're going to need to be over here. You're going to be, I'm like, you're going to be at this ballpark. And then if you wanted to add this, you want to go on a speaking tour, blah, 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 you'd be, he was like, well, I had somebody on Fiverr that said they would do it for, like, I don't know what the number was, like $600. I'm like, I don't even know what the hell you're talking about, man, because what I just said has no comparison to what you, like, he was like, they said they're going to edit my book for $500, whatever the I'm like, I told you we're taking you from here to global mass release interviews, press releases, and you're talking about them editing or formatting, whichever one it was. It's not even the same. What are you talking about, man? And of course, I didn't hear from him again, but I was like, well, hey, go for it, man. Go on, Tom.
I was going to say, meanwhile, that person on Fiverr is charging them $500 to run spell check on their book or use the grammar plugin in Word or something, right? Like that's
he was
for $500.
Yeah, and he was like, "How much would it cost to publish with?" And I'm like, "This. You could choose this. You could choose it. You want to call Vaughn for an audiobook? What other things do you want on top of it? We're just scratching the surface." And he's like, "Well, they can do it on Fiverr for $500." I'm like, "What?" Anyway, all right, let's continue. Satva, man, we're talking about pricing, knowing your worth, when you can walk away from something. So you want to add to any of those, or if you want to drop a tip or ask a question, go on, my friend.
Good to see you, Tom, Dominic. He said, go ahead, Eric. I'm actually, I see your mic's open. I'll go after Eric.
Eric, you're up first, and we'll go to Satva. Eric was up. No, who knows? Who knows what's going on? Okay, Tom.
I think Eric accidentally unmuted himself. Oh no, there he is.
Okay,
awesome. There we go. Sorry.
Hold on, Satva. We're going to Eric first, and then Satva. Eric, hold on. Let me get some order here. Mute.
There we go.
Eric, go on, my friend.
Clear runway. So
clear runway for Eric, then Satva.
A couple things popped up. My good friend Tanya Man, when I was early on in my real estate career, was like, "Hey, look, cost is only a factor in the absence of value. So clearly you messed up on presenting the value." I was like, "No, it was a house. It was a 5-bedroom, 4.5." And I'm like, can't they see the physical product? And she was she's like, they're not buying the house. They're trying to figure out if that house fits the experience that they want for the rest of their life. And that's your job to figure out for them. And so I don't know if you can really separate a physical product from a service, so to speak, because as a realtor, back when I used to train realtors, thanks to Tanya, we're not selling houses. I mean, that's what it says on the paper, but we're selling possibilities. We're selling dreams. We're selling safety, security, really abstract ideas that all have to look like this house that they're going to buy on June 25th. And so when I'm working with authors, it's like, I'm not selling you a bunch of paper shoved between a cover. I'm not only sharing the experience of being in a truly publishable industry with marketing and promotion, but like, what happens after the book? Because editing is like not really that important if you don't have the plan to where to do. So I had to learn that, you know what, I'm arguing cost, and that's going to get me nowhere. But if I can really emphasize the value and tie it to the product and then own both of those spaces, cost is no longer a factor. And I'll close out.
Well said, Eric. Thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. You stopped for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour. You haven't been here for 6 months and you come back. We appreciate you. Thank you. Satva, what do you got for us, my friend?
Awesome. So I was, okay, so I'm in a different space. So I was in a business. Well, my whole family ran a business. When I watched them and their dynamics, it translated into my own. I was naming my price when I actually was confident in what I was offering as a service. I knew that I had to be on the best of the best, the top of the top. So what I did was I asked a lot of questions in the process, and then I started to really lay my numbers down, uncompromising. And at first it was tough because people, they didn't want, one of the things in the industry I was in was like, oh, well, private escort vehicle operators are a dime a dozen. So what I did was when I seen them in person, I gave them a dime and I said, here's your dozen escorts. And they usually wound up having really bad accidents or, they wouldn't show up or whatever. And it was at that point, there's a little interim there. But at that point, I began to actually call forward all of that, which I was worth and desired. I mean, I was making a lot every day. So anyway, that's what I have to offer in that respect. Know your worth. Don't settle for less, and have faith and trust in the process, because it's a powerful thing. Magic is trusting in yourself and in the process. Thanks for the stage. Big love. I'm done speaking. Back over to you, Dominic.
Hey man, big love. I like that. First person to give. I don't think we've ever got big love. We get love, we get kind words, but nobody's ever said big love. So thank you. Big love back to all of you. Hey, you know, I burn out. And I got to go work on my tan. I got other things to do. So Tom, would you mind putting a nice little bow on everything we've talked about today?
I mean, I'll put a bow on something. I don't know if I can put a bow on everything we've talked about today, because we've talked about a bunch of things. We've talked about,
it's true.
We've talked about, I mean, pricing has been the sort of consistent theme, and that's what I was going to wrap up talking about. But I mean, we've also talked a little bit about sales. We've also talked about, ET wallets. We've talked about your tan just now. So we've hit on a bunch of things. Yeah, don't get me started on the tan. We've hit on a bunch of things. But here's what I wanted to end with. This is something I mentioned to Dom before we got on the live today. That I actually got into a Facebook conversation with somebody about pricing just the other day. And it was a bit of a comment back and forth. It ended up that we agreed on the sort of like the broad strokes of what we were talking about, but there were some clarifying questions going back and forth. It was all very amenable. It was never got aggressive or anything like that. But what we were talking about, and this ties into what Dr. Tachi was talking about how if you take a price, right? If you do work for less than it's worth, it doesn't just hurt you, it hurts everybody else in the industry that you're in, right? And so this goes to that. So this initially started out as somebody had posted a job with an unreasonably low rate looking for camera operators for a live event. And they were basically offering to pay $35 an hour for a camera operator for a live event for a Food Network show, right? So this is not like a local whatever, it was a commercial endeavor, a commercial project. Okay. And they were offering $35 an hour, which is less than half of what that rate should be, right? That rate should start at about $75 an hour, not $35 an hour. Okay. And depending on experience, should go up from there. So essentially I commented and I said, hey, look, I'm interested, but I'm interested for this rate. Right. And I gave them what my rate would be for this. And it was starting at $75 an hour for a 10-hour day. And that's the minimum. You have to pay me for at least 10 hours if you're going to hire me. And then from 10 to 12 hours is time and a half. And from 12 hours to 16 hours is double time. And I will not work past 16 hours, period, end of story, right? 16 hours, I'm packing up and going home, right? And so kind of got into this and basically in that thing, I said, $35 an hour is essentially a production assistant rate, right? And you can't expect to hire a camera operator, right? Somebody with particular expertise and experience, especially a good one, for a rate that you would pay somebody who's entry level, right? And a production assistant in my industry is an entry level position, right? It requires, typically you want somebody with some production experience, right? But not like any sort of expertise, just they've been on sets before, maybe they've interned, or maybe they've gone to film school or something like that, right? But it's broadly speaking, an entry level position, right? Not much, if any, experience required. And ultimately what we got into was a bit of a debate where somebody started posting and said, here's what I pay production assistants. And what they were saying was they pay them, I think $210 for 12 hours, $210 for 12 hours, which works out to about $17.50 an hour. Okay. And I live in the Hudson Valley in New York, right? So not in New York City where things are more expensive, but it's still a pretty expensive part of the country to live in, right? And so I said, okay, you're paying $17.50 an hour. let's do the math, because I'm arguing that that's not a living wage where we are. And so here's how the math broke out, right? If you get paid $17.50 an hour and work full time, that works out to about $28,000 a year after taxes, right? Now, if your rent in this area is about $1,000 a month for like a 1-bedroom apartment, right? And it can go up or down a little bit from there, but we'll just call that a fair estimate. So about $1,000 a month. And then when you add on things like utilities, a couple $100 a month, transportation, owning a car, about $1,000 a month by the time you have gas and insurance and all the other associated expenses. Anyway, it all adds up. Groceries, right? Just the necessities. It all adds up to a little over $29,000 a year, right? So you're basically guaranteeing that someone is going to be in debt over $1,000 a year, right? Every year, because you're paying them $17.50 an hour. So my argument is that's not a living wage. And I said, I pay my PAs $30 an hour, right? Because that's a living wage. And we got into this whole discussion. We ended up agreeing that like wage theft is a problem in our industry, that people being underpaid is a problem in our industry, that there's a strike going on right now, right? With the Writers Guild of America. The writers are striking right now, right? And IATSE, the camera operators union, and the Teamsters union in solidarity are not crossing the picket lines because they agree that wage theft is a problem in our industry and people are chronically underpaid as these large studios and producers are generating record profits quarter over quarter, right? So what I'm getting to with all of this is that I want to encourage everyone here, anybody listening to this now or after the fact, right? Advocate for yourself 100%. Know your worth, know the value you bring to the table, charge accordingly, right? Do not be afraid to charge accordingly. And when given the opportunity, right, as I was the other day on Facebook, when given the opportunity, advocate for other people in your industry, especially entry-level people just starting out. They get taken advantage of the most. And if we allow businesses or we allow wages to be driven down for people in entry-level positions in any industry, this goes across the board, right? It will drive down everyone's wages over time, right? So make sure everybody, from the people on the bottom of the ladder to the people in the middle of the ladder to wherever you are on the ladder, are paid appropriately for the value that you bring to the table, and make sure everybody has the opportunity to earn a living wage. I think it's the bare minimum and the least we can do. And that's all I got for today. That's how I want to leave things. When you're given the chance, make sure you advocate, not just for yourself, but for others as well. Right. So that's all I got. Thank you everybody for being here. Again, every Wednesday, I'm here because I love doing this. I love doing this with Dom. I love spending my Wednesday morning with all of you. And we both appreciate all of you for being here, especially all the folks that are here relentlessly with us, week after week. Love you guys. Love all of you for being here. And we will see you again next Wednesday morning at 9:30 a.m. We are not the smartest guys in the room. You are the smartest folks in the room. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week. Everybody have a great rest of your week. Love you. Bye-bye.